Love to talk a little bit too about technology and some of the tools that we have. I know, we're quite lucky, like the partners and the services that Remax Generation kind of brings on and provides stuff like showing time, and really trusted are pretty amazing, as far as being able to complete bin track, and then of course complete the paperwork in a manner that Anne and myself, or Debbie or Maggie are not going to kick back to you guys. So we do obviously encourage, Chad, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Really Trusted and stuff, but if you have an account, you link it to our brokerage account, you'll have full remote identification, scanning and that kind of stuff. So it makes life really easy.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, awesome. Speaking of that, actually, something to keep an eye out for. I know a lot of you, you don't necessarily utilize showing time and the service that we do provide through the brokerage. The Vancouver Island Board and the Victoria Board are looking at introducing showing time as a not eliminating touch base, but bringing in showing time to use as the primary point of contact for interagent communications and showings and that kind of stuff. It does offer a lot more flexibility. It does, provide much better reporting to clients and stuff like that. So we'll see if the boards jump on board. It would be nice if they did. I've utilized it in its full capacity in other areas of the province, and it is a pretty phenomenal program. So, Andy, you have a question?
I do. I have never had any training on showing time, and it does look a lot more functional than touch base. Touch base can sometimes be pretty glitchy and clunky, but it's pretty straightforward and typically fairly easy to use. But I think there's a lot. It looks to me, it feels like there's a lot of moving parts in showing time. So I would really be happy with if one of these Thursdays you just kind of like showed us, some of the basics on it.
Well, to be honest, the basics are log in and enter your name and that. Really that's it. The ability for showing time to communicate directly with your clients or tenants, for example. They can communicate directly. It doesn't necessarily have to come through you. It does track everything through you. But if your owner wants to approve or deny or manage showings, then they have the ability to do that as well. So there's multiple levels to it, and if we do get it, we'll definitely get a little bit more in depth as far as the full function of what it offers.
But we do have it.
Yeah,
the real estate group has it.
Yeah, we have. So Andy, you're already logged in, and all you
do
is
know.
Reply. What do you? What
it was set up. Well, it was set up for us. So
yeah,
and a lot of the work gets done from, I think,
the admin team.
Team at the front desk.
And then it's pretty basic. You just go you can respond to people, can't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I usually respond through touch base though.
So
you don't use showing time to talk to people, like when you give showing feedback?
No, it's all through touch base usually.
Well, the admin already sets it up, and anytime that somebody responds to it, because it's sent out on our behalf, then it goes right to your client and you see what it is.
Yeah,
I responded to yours just last week. Did you get that message from me when I went? Yeah,
I've seen responses on there.
And so that goes right to your client as well, as long as you've asked for that, which you should, because your client needs to know what's being said. And then you don't have to relay each message.
There's like a button that says publish to client. So
exactly. Yeah.
But does it already automatically go to them? So when I press that,
if you have told Haley that what you want the response to go to, then it will. If you've said you want response to go to your client, like they need to know showing notifications, all of that sort of stuff, then yes, it's already going to go to them. You don't have to do it.
You manage what they get, basically.
You've done it before it gets to showing time. Showing time is a sub of going on to Matrix for us.
Bringing it in board wide and bringing it, bring everybody on board would certainly make it much more user friendly with limited use, because not everybody actually utilizes it. Then it doesn't make it as efficient as it can be, but hopefully we'll see the boards bring that on.
I don't know how that would replace touch base though, because you can't take appointments through there.
Through showing time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can. Of
Oh,
course
you can?
Oh, yeah.
So they'll just
Yeah.
link that to Matrix
Yeah.
then instead of touch base?
Yeah.
Perfect. I don't
Yeah.
see any problem with that.
Exactly. It would be the same thing, only you would hit, ST as
It's
opposed.
cleaner
It is,
for
yeah.
sure. Showing time for sure.
I think the problem with these programs when you have admin in the picture as well is like when I learn a program, I learn how to use it and I learn the ins and outs of it. But when there's admin involved, I don't know what they're doing and what I should be doing. So I mean, there's like too many cooks in the
They're
kitchen.
doing what you've asked them to do.
Yeah.
I've never been shown how to use
The
it.
the admin portion that we utilize through Remax Generation, realtors opt into that. They don't have to. We have some realtors that solely completely manage all of their showing requests and stuff completely independent and on their own. Having admin with the Neil Estate Group and even the girls up at Frontier, that's an option. That's a service that the office provides that you can take advantage of, or you don't have to.
And it all comes in your pre-listing package that you give to the office, or do you give to Haley and everybody? When you fill that out, all of that information comes from that form. So you have done it. It's on the back side, and it's when you talk about showing instructions, it's once you filled out that form, it's done. But
So
we shouldn't take up everyone's time with this.
No, I know. Do you use touch base and showing time, Danielle?
Yeah.
Oh.
Of course I do.
Currently, we have to. Touch base is it's the one that is integrated throughout the entire board area.
I see.
Showing time is an option right now. Yeah.
But it's an option for us because we have.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
On to the next.
So how are we doing otherwise? We had an interesting conversation yesterday, I guess with Andy and Mark coming out of the meeting, talking a little bit about subject to sales, and Danielle, you wanted to touch a little bit more on backup offers and stuff like that as well. Before we go, I guess, Chad, have you met everybody? Has everybody met Chad?
I think so.
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, these Thursday groups, is it the first one that you've attended? I think I missed the last one because I was traveling. We kind of like to just maybe go a little bit around the room, see how everybody's doing, see if anybody's having any particular challenges or anything, really exciting they want to share and talk about. And then we'll dive into, some backup offers and a lot of, time clause and subject to sale ofs that we're following up on and seeing a lot of lately, actually. So anything you want to share with us, Chad, or?
I bought a condo yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
That was cool. Yeah.
Who was your agent?
Yeah, he was great.
Who was it?
Just me and Ryan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
So yeah, it was it's going to be a rental. We're buying it for a rental. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Good for you.
What was the transaction like? Was it conditioned? Was it unconditional? Like, were you competing? Like, was there a competitive market for it, or?
Yeah, there was one other offer.
Yeah.
I still went in low.
Yeah.
But I waived my commissions, so that brought the price down a bit. So yeah, it was conditioned to finance, and that's about it.
Good. Yeah.
Good for you.
Interesting. Like we're seeing, definitely an uptick in market activity, and we're seeing a lot of multiple offers. And when I watch the hot sheet every morning, we're seeing a few properties, selling a little bit over ask or marginally over ask. But even some of the ones that we're seeing that are in multiples, there's still conditions. There's still not necessarily full price. So though it's active, it's certainly not quite as heated as it has been over the last year, which is beneficial, I think, for most. Maybe sellers aren't super happy about it, but in the end, it's a much more balanced environment that is much less risky for buyers. So yeah. Andy, anything you want to touch on at all, or?
Not too much. I mean, just following the conversation we had yesterday with our training with the Neil Estate Group, and the conversation we ultimately had with you afterwards, around time clauses and all the intricacies of it, and the lining up the dates and the domino effect when other transactions are dependent on yours. It just seems terrifying. So the more time we can spend with it, so I can wrap my head around it, the better.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we'll get into that a little bit more too. Danielle, is there anything else that you want to kind of share with us before we get rolling a little deeper?
No, I'm really slow right now. I haven't done much in the last, but I got some good showings coming up this weekend. And
Yeah.
open houses. It's what it is. Ebbs and flows.
Yeah, open houses, it's a great way to meet people.
I got 4 clients out of the last one that I did.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, I haven't done an open house in a long time, but my experience with open houses, I'm not even sure I ever sold one listing from an open house that I did in the past, but it was always the best way to meet potential buyers. And obviously, sort of being open up front and checking and asking the right questions, if they're working with a realtor and that kind of stuff. But if they are, great, but you can leave the door open if if they're ever wanting to have a chat or a conversation. Sometimes people think they're working with realtors. Sometimes realtors tell people that they're their clients. Sometimes clients, or consumers don't always understand that they have the choice to choose who they want to work with.
Yes.
So there's always potential opportunity. We want to be careful, of course. We don't want to do anything that would be sort of damaging or cause any disruptions internally. If somebody obviously is working with a realtor within our office, we're like, great. But if they're working outside the office and there's a reasonable opportunity to engage in good conversation and try and establish a little bit of a relationship and leave the door open for them, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's a free competitive market. The challenge and the trick is obviously making sure that you don't end up having a conversation with somebody and then thinking, oh, I'd really like to come work with you. However, they could be bound by a buyer agency agreement, which could be a little bit hurtful. So being super clear about that is really important. Anybody else not on camera that have anything they want to touch on real quick? Anybody else not on camera paying attention?
I'm paying attention.
Hey Nick, how are you?
Hi Darren. Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hey guys. I don't really have anything. I'm just trying to get more leads, and I think something I'm working on now is making sure that when I'm talking to people, being more authoritative and being the professional in the relationship and moving them along the process, instead of just being like, okay, you're not ready, that's fine, talk to you later, kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm working on.
And that's perfect, because in reality, we are helping people through, and sometimes we forget it and we need little reminders. But this transaction and this process, whether you're selling or buying, like, this is massive for the people that we're representing. And and to be fair, Nick, it's a little bit tough when you're new and a little bit young and you don't have a lot of experience under your belt. But being able to, convey confidence and convey knowledge, that really helps build that trust. So, finding those opportunities to grow and get more comfortable, and, always, continue learning. Obviously, if there's ever a time where, you're feeling like there's nothing you can do, there's always something you can do to sort of help build your confidence, and just, your body language is really important too, how you present yourself, and the words that you choose. So I mean, you're definitely on the right path for sure. But the confidence, in the knowledge and your expertise and your experience that you convey is going to be really important, and being able to establish a long-term relationship with that client, because every client that you approach and that you engage, you want to do 5 deals with them at a minimum over the course of your career. Like, clients shouldn't just be clients for 1 deal and then gone. Like, you want to establish them, and you want to make sure that they can trust you, And, they're confident in what they hear from you and information that you provide, so. Nova,
I'm here too. This computer doesn't have a webcam, so I'm going to switch computers in a minute here. But yeah, morning everybody.
how you doing, Emily?
Morning.
I'm good, thanks. Actually, I have a little bit of an influx of people coming to me right now, which is really exciting. Lots of buyers, so yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend. But yeah.
Totally, yeah. We're gonna see a lot of buyers, and that's great. And open houses and little networking events are great ways to capitalize on that. The key here, and something I think that's been a concrete adage in the world of real estate, are listings are king. So if you can focus, or find some avenues to provide a little bit of marketing or do a little bit of door knocking or some way to connect with potential sellers. Listings will always keep you busy. At times it can be really tough when there's lots and lots and lots of buyers and not a lot of product. And it's great to spend time with buyers because most likely you'll end up finding them something down the road. But this is really a good time to put a little effort and a little focus on attracting some listings and getting some products to the market that these people can purchase. So. Danielle, you wanted to talk a little bit about backup offers, since we are seeing a lot, and again, a lot of subject to sales, so it certainly provides an opportunity for backup. Was there anything specific? Because there's usually a few different ways that these things can go.
Yeah. I know, well, I wouldn't mind to go over the process when it comes with the subject to sale. Because I've done about 4 or 5, but I've never had somebody put an offer in and actually get the process started. Say they come in and they want to put an offer in when I've got my 24-hour time clause.
Okay, so you're the listing agent, for example.
I'm a buyer. I've got a 24-hour clause. And then somebody comes in and puts in an offer to go against my clause.
Okay. So that's the key, is that time clause, and one of the things that frustrates me a little bit is the standard clauses, and our job is to be able to to write and produce contracts that really do the best they can to benefit our clients. The BCFSA, the standard time clause that you get within web forms reads a particular way. The board created one, the Victoria Real Estate Board standard time clause reads a particular way. The one from the Vancouver Island Board reads another particular way. So really it just highlights the importance of knowing who you're working for. The clauses can favor one client over another. Which one we choose to opt or choose to try to work with really is going to depend on who we're working for. But when you're working for your buyer and you're putting an offer in that's subject to the sale of, you want to make it as difficult as possible for somebody coming in behind you with a backup offer to allow that clause to be invoked. I'm not sure if you're saying something because you're muted, but
I said invoked, yeah.
Yeah. So, the one that you choose, and because you're acting for the buyer, you're the one likely going to insert that time clause into the contract. Now, I know at times, I've seen contracts where buyer's agents haven't put time clauses in, and most of the time, a listing realtor will come back with a time clause. There is an element of proactivity, putting that in there and asking for 36 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it may be. If you don't put one in and you leave the onus on the seller's agent to put one in, if they do, great, they're probably going to be a little bit tight, maybe a little bit more aggressive as far as what time they're allowing. If they don't put one in, that's even better. The chances are they will. And sometimes as challenging as it might be, I've seen it where, you know, a subject to the sale was inserted into a contract with no time clause. The buyer agent didn't put one in, the seller agent didn't put one in. And essentially they had a conditional contract for 3 months that the seller couldn't get out of. And the only option, the only thing that was hanging in the balance was the buyer's ability to satisfy those conditions. So how it's worded is important, and we've talked about this before. The standard clause with BCFSA through your clause library within web forms states it calls for an unconditional offer, backup offer, aside from the subject to seller ceasing to be obligated. So all the buyer conditions precedent should be satisfied prior to being able to invoke your notice. And that's the same as the one that the Victoria Real Estate Board has in their standard clause. That is the time clause addendum I or whichever it is. That actually is quite favorable for your buyer. It's a little bit restrictive, I think, from a seller's perspective. But if you're working for a buyer, it's a great clause to use, because anybody coming in behind you is going to have to deal with financing. They're going to have to deal with their inspection. They're going to have to do all of their due diligence to satisfy those conditions before you get notice of the invocation. Something else that I would also consider adding, if you're doing a time clause, is a term that basically states that should the seller be in receipt of a backup offer or another offer, that there's an obligation that they notify you of one being accepted.
This is what I was gonna ask, because they'll tell you only when all conditions are already removed.
Yeah,
And then that's when you start your 24, 48, 30, whatever.
yeah,
That's when that starts. And then you got to get your ducks in a row. So that's what I'm wondering is, I want to be notified when the opportunities even started.
yeah, exactly. And so you can insert that as a term. They may scratch it, they may not. But there's nothing wrong with inserting a term that says, you know, the seller or seller's agent will notify the buyer's agent immediately upon acceptance of a backup offer. So then you'll know, you know, you don't necessarily need to know the details, but at least you'll know that, you know, it's likely we're going to get notice invoking our clause here. So is there something we can do? You know, is there something that we can do? Do we have something on the go? Is there something that we can speed up to try and facilitate this transaction?
So one thing about the backups is another thing I'm wondering. So why, if they already know that there's a 24-hour clause on there as the new buyer, why would you even give the notice? Or would you just get all the conditions, know you're going in, know you want it, and then start it so that you don't give them that notice?
You could.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is a strategic point from that side. If you're going to have to wait anyways, why would you want to give them 2 weeks notice or a week's notice? Just get your ducks in a row before you place that set backup offer.
Yeah, and that sort of term or that sort of disclosure wouldn't necessarily, you know, benefit a seller or certainly the second buyer coming in. And it depends on their structure. You know, they may want to have, you know, an accepted offer in place, you know, before they conduct their due diligence. Sometimes they may be able to do it in advance, but they may or may not. Like it depends, and you know, it's confusing in a lot of ways, because you know there's certainly a number of different ways people can go through this process, and depending on what their strategy is really gonna, you know, help lay the groundwork for it. You know, inserting, you know, terms for the benefit of your seller, like, you know, the disclosure of an accepted backup offer immediately. Also adding terms whereby, you know, the seller agrees that should you, the buyer, be in receipt of an accepted offer on your property, that the time clause will not be invoked for a period of 14 days. Right? So if you have an offer on your place and all of a sudden the seller gets a backup offer that's, for example, unconditional and says, oh, we're going to give you 24 hours notice, that term prevents the seller from invoking that time clause, which allows you the ability to go through the due diligence process on selling your house. You know, so you're not at that point where my house is almost sold, but you know, there's a 24-hour clause kind of thing, like, you know, say you have, you know, 5 days for conditions. And the seller's like, okay, you got 24 hours, you know, inserting that clause that prevents them from invoking the time clause if you're in receipt of an offer. You know, or bound or have an accepted contract in place, gives you the opportunity to complete that due diligence without having to worry about a 24-hour clause being invoked.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
A lot of the things with real estate, you don't know what it is until you get there.
it's true. It's 100%.
That's why I'm like trying to be a little proactive here, like.
Yeah.
Until you do it, you'll never know.
And,
For
and if
real.
you're, yeah, I'll get 1 sec, Nate. If you're, you know, if you're in that situation, like, I'll always reach out. I know Ron is always available, and there's a great group for you guys at the Neil Estate group as well, from the admin and on the back end of stuff. But it doesn't matter, like, from my perspective, like, it doesn't matter if you're an independent and you're on this team, you're on that team. Like, I'm always here to help you guys kind of go through this process and try to put these contracts together. So you never have to
Very
worry
helpful.
about, you know, competing with me on a deal or a transaction. I don't list, I don't work with buyers, like, I'm completely independent to you guys, so. Nate, you had a question?
I just wrote a time clause on behalf of a buyer, subject to sale of. So the seller countered and they struck out where I put upon the acceptance of an unconditional offer, and they just wrote in accepted offer instead of unconditional.
Yeah.
I was okay with that, but I thought, what would really be the logic? Like, they could get an accepted offer, but if it's not unconditional, are they really gonna, unless it's more money, would they really, you know, it's not a done deal, so why would they bother tripping the time clause at that point?
So from a seller's perspective, like, we've just been talking about, you know, what a time clause and looks like, and what maximizes the benefit from a buyer. The ability to invoke a time clause upon an accepted offer provides a little bit more flexibility for a seller. It also it's a little bit softer and a little bit more encouraging for other buyers to come forward, because now other buyers don't necessarily have to exercise all of their due diligence before they get to that point where they may or may not be able to buy this house. Sometimes too, you know, when we have, you know, subject to sale, you know, a seller or a seller's agent, you know, they're going to be studying, they're going to be monitoring, you know, the house that you have for sale. If they don't think there's, you know, reasonable efforts being made, if they don't think that there's fair value in your list price, if it's taking too long, you're not getting any activity, sometimes they may just want to, you know, throw their hands up and be like, I'm sorry, you had a chance, you know, we're gonna move on. And, you know, we've been at this, you know, for example, for a month. You've got no progress on your house, you haven't changed the price, it doesn't look like you're making any effort, so we have another offer with terms that we're agreeable to. We're going to move on with that one, because in the end we just want to sell our house. We don't necessarily want to sit around waiting for you to sell your house. So that's an important distinction, and something to be really mindful of when you're reviewing, because, you know, depending on which side of the deal you're on, I've seen it happen too many times where, you know, a realtor will just, oh, you know, subject to the sale of, and they'll assume that, you know, it's upon acceptance of another offer, or it's upon, you know, a backup offer going unconditional. So, you know, there have been times where, you know, a seller might think that, oh, they just have to accept another offer and they're able to move forward because they're frustrated with the current buyer in place. But if it is unconditional, you know, it can come as a bit of a surprise sometimes that backup has to be unconditional before they can kick you to the curb because they're tired of dealing with you. So depending on who you're working with, really important to read the details and understand the Victoria form. You know, even the Vancouver Island form, with all the added verbiage and that kind of stuff, I really do find them confusing for us as realtors a little bit, and having to try and explain, you know, word for word what those mean to clients can be really confusing. The standard clauses that are provided to us through web forms and BCFSA, those are standard, you know, from every corner of the province to another. They're pretty simple, they're pretty easy to read. You know, whichever one you choose to use, just make sure you can comfortably, and easily explain it, to your client, be it buyer or seller.
That's what I always use, is just the clause. And then one time a guy says, why didn't you use the form? It's like,
Yeah. There.
I only had 1 out of 5 say, why didn't you use the form? And I've never used the form.
Yeah, there's a, there's a bit of a club in Victoria. Victoria thinks that, Victoria does everything the best way. And nobody does it better. And there is a small group of realtors that are, it's a little bit sad, because some people, we've had actually contracts come back to us because we didn't use a specific form. We've had a realtor say, oh, this is an illegal contract, I can't present this offer, that's not on that form. In the end, a contract is a contract. It doesn't matter what form it's on. We have standard forms that are provided to you, the realtor, from the British Columbia Real Estate Association, BCREA. Those are your standard forms that are included in web forms. Various boards throughout the province have gone through and created, adaptations and their own forms, for a specific board with a little bit of branding and that kind of stuff, which are good forms. They've all been vetted and looked over by, the legals and stuff like that, as far as the usability and accessibility. But it can be really tricky, especially if you're working with another realtor from outside the area. Like the amount of times, that we as Victoria realtors, cross borders with us as Vancouver Island realtors, because there are, 2 different ways of doing it, it can often create a little bit of confusion. So it would be great if we all were on the same page and we all, practice real estate and wrote contracts the same way. Because we share territory and we cross borders, and it creates confusion when realtors think that, it has to be on this particular form. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
What's your take on that? Like, what do you think is best practice?
I think best practice is, so one, when we go through the licensing process, and we do the applied practice course, the person and the entity that gives us our license gives us tools and gives us a library of standard clauses that are 100% good for everyone.
That's what you use.
Yeah, when we go and we start doing things a little bit differently, or amending the process or altering the process, and creating an environment where, it's wrong if we do it this way, or it's wrong if we do it this way, it creates a lot of confusion. And then, for Victoria realtors, for example, when you go through, you learn how to pull clauses from the standard clause library, you learn how to insert them into a contract under terms and conditions and that kind of stuff. But, the fact that it's wrong to do that in Victoria, or somebody thinks that's the wrong way to do it, creates a lot of confusion, and it creates a lot of challenges. And the hard part is, the way it's done here is not the way it's done, for example, in Duncan. But we have realtors in Victoria going up to Duncan, and we have realtors in Duncan coming down to Victoria. Like, we should all do it the same way. We are trained to do it the same way. But when we get to the local board level, that's when the boards are like, oh, we should do it this way. We should do it this way. We should do it this way. We should all be doing it the same way.
So which is the clause, not the form, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Utilizing the clauses and the tools that are provided to us from the entity that licenses us and is responsible for regulating us, we should probably do it the way they're suggesting we do.
Yeah, I was really thrown off when he brought that up, and I was like, shit, I'm doing it wrong. I've been doing it wrong this whole time. Why has nobody said it to me? Because the way he said it, it's like,
you know what, as long as you have, the elements that create a contract,
I have the clause from the library.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the problem is people think it's wrong. But in the end, if you identify the property, you identify the parties, you identify the consideration, you can literally write a binding contract on this. It does not have to be on standard forms. The standard forms in web forms that you get that are provided through the British Columbia Real Estate Association, those are created in partnership and have joint ownership with the Bar Association, of British Columbia. Those forms are standard for everybody throughout the province. It's coast to coast, it's border to border. Those are the standard forms. As I said, boards specifically will create their own little, little variations and little tools to potentially help realtors. But when we have these little forms that help people, sometimes we forget, what the actual process is. And in the end, whether we use that form or whether we write them in, per the clause library or the other tools provided, the only right way to do it is making sure that we've got all our I's dotted, we've got all our T's crossed, and we've got all the benefits to our client that we're able to negotiate into it. The provincial forms, we're actually trying to get those integrated into additional technologies like Really Trusted. The challenge is they're owned, they have the Bar Association actually has 50% ownership of those. So what we see as web forms right now, although it is a good tool, and it's sure it's not perfect, but it certainly makes our life a lot easier than typewriters and pen and paper and that kind of stuff. But within 5 years, 10 years, I would look for those forms to potentially be incorporated into other resources such as Really Trusted or something like that for accessibility. The PDF format that we complete these in is a highly outdated technology, and with the emergence of stuff like AI and that kind of stuff, I mean, the technology is going to change really quickly for sure. Yeah. Did we lose Danielle there?
Oh, my camera's a little wonky sometimes. Looks like I'm in a disco, so. I pick it up by my camera too often, my laptop, so.
Yeah.
It just gets a little shaky.
Yeah. So I guess as a follow-up, to the time clause, honestly, there's no perfect way. The two different clauses, the unconditional or the, just mere acceptance, it really is going to depend on who you're working for. That the way you write it, you have to make sure that, your clients are aware of the differences, the potential of what a counter offer might look like and that kind of stuff. So, but when you're writing it initially, you should really just sort of have that conversation and say, look, how do we want to approach this? What is our strategy? And, when you're at that point of writing an offer, you should know what the strategy is and be prepared for potential counter offers or adjustments or that kind of stuff. We don't necessarily want to get a counter offer that might surprise or shock our clients. Hopefully we're being a little bit proactive and we're looking ahead. How is the seller going to respond to this? This is what we could potentially expect coming back. They're gonna accept it. They're gonna just say no, or they're gonna come back and maybe counter or provide a few different terms. What that looks like, we won't know until we hear from them. But this is what we're gonna move forward with. The backup offer itself, if you're looking at a property that has an accepted offer in place, I mean it's a fairly simple transaction and simple process, but you do need a couple of key pieces of information from the listing realtor. The listing realtor should be able to provide you with a condition date, or they have to provide you with a condition date just so you can structure the offer. You're subject to the seller ceasing to be obligated. For example, if the condition date on the current accepted offer, for example, is April 27th, your subject to the seller ceasing to be obligated should be on or before the 28th. Make it the next day. If for example, because there's a couple of ways that can play out. If the first buyer, doesn't release the seller, conditions are due on or by the 27th. So basically tonight at midnight, this contract is still binding until tonight at midnight. If you're subject to the seller ceasing to be obligated is the 27th, that contract is going to expire also at midnight. So if you want to, sit by the phone, until midnight tonight, if you want to be ready to hand off, subject removals to keep both offers, binding and in play, that's entirely up to you. Having your obligation condition the day after subjects is probably the most binding and the easiest to navigate, just because it allows you that window. If the first buyer doesn't act, their contract is dead at midnight. And then the seller is free to remove the next day or even later on that night if they're up at 1 o'clock in the morning to remove that condition to allow you to move forward. Any confusion on that? Any thoughts on that from anybody? Assuming you're paying attention. You don't get any credit for this, by the way, if you're not paying attention. Looks like it's just you and I, Chad. Everybody else is gone. Where are you coming from, Chad? We haven't had a chance to chat very much.
Like, what did I used to do?
Yeah. Are you new to real estate?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, I used to own a retail store in Oak Bay, a pet store for a couple years.
Yeah.
And before that, I was a sales rep
Okay. Yeah.
for
Awesome.
Western Canada and the island.
What pet store?
I used to own Pets Life.
Ah,
Yeah, I owned it for a couple years and then sold it.
I'm a big pet person.
Yeah,
No kids over here.
yeah. I used to own a pet store in Winnipeg for 16 years before we moved to the island too.
Oh, wow.
I've had a handful of pets over the years, but you know what? I'm an empty nester now. Like I'm almost a complete empty nester, and so I went with kids as opposed to pets, and I'm not sure that I want to bring more kids back into the house right now.
Enjoy your life.
Have you had many contract writing experiences yet, Chad, or was the contract that you wrote on your condo the first one that you put together?
That was my first one, yeah.
Awesome.
First
And
real
you had
one.
Ryan walk through the process and help you out there.
Yeah,
Great. Awesome.
it was awesome.
You'll probably see, as you're working with buyers, the Victoria market, it has been, and it probably always will be challenging. The demand for the market is incredible, and the supply just seems to be dwindling or stable or not really moving in a direction that really is moving into firm buyers, or even balanced territory. So it's a bit of a tough one. Backup offers are probably going to be, something that you'll have to navigate, and in addition to, competing offers and time clause offers. So under just, I think, if you're getting into those types of situations, never ever hesitate to reach out. I know that, Ryan and Ron, and all those team guys are great to help and resource, but never forget, I'm a resource for you guys as well. So there's lots of opportunity for everybody to find some help, and I'll always try to answer the phone and answer the texts and that kind of stuff as quickly as possible. So
You're very efficient with that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You guys are my clients. Like,
Yeah.
you guys are my
I've got you on speed dial.
Yeah, totally good. Nick, have you had any contract dealings at all recently with backup offers or time clauses?
Come here.
No backup offers, time clauses, just gone through 3 contracts now and kind of just learning how everything works, but nothing really crazy, I guess.
Yeah. And you just closed your first deal.
I did. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I need many more.
Yeah, how'd it feel to pay all those fees? Your first one's never that great because you got all these fees to pay.
I know it was really anticlimactic.
Everybody has the same thing. So I don't know if anybody told you this. Your first one, you always get so excited, and then you're like, wow, I've got 3 months of fees that are going to come off this.
The key is
part of it.
When we do start getting paid and we do start collecting commission checks, is just be mindful that everybody gets a piece of that, including Canada Revenue Agency. you wanna earn your commissions and use your commissions as if you were operating a business. You do operate a business, you have business expenses. There'll always be some bills to pay. You're gonna earn a lot more than you spend over time, but make sure you set up good bookkeeping practices and good spending practices. Get your business operating account, if that's what you want to call it, whether you're using your personal checking account as a sole proprietor, you have a separate checking account, whatever it is, get that account balance to cover a minimum of 3 to 6 months worth of operation. I'm a firm believer in budgeting and having a substantial or a significant operating account in your bank account. It's really tough and really stressful for you to operate and work day to day if we maintain a position, or we don't set ourselves up so that we're not working with a zero balance in our operating account. Money comes in, money goes out. Get yourself to a point where, if you get a bill, just pay it. Doesn't matter. You've got some money sitting in your account to operate with and manage with. So as you start getting deals and you start getting these commissions, maybe shy a little bit away from a larger purchase or something like that at the moment, until you get a good operating balance in your account. I've seen too many realtors I guess shit the bed, for lack of a better term, as far as being able to manage their funds and getting into trouble. There's numerous stories and numerous cases out there where Canada Revenue Agency is going to come calling and they want to get paid. It's tax time, and the realtor, they've made a lot of money, but they don't have any money in their account to pay their taxes or something like that. So just important to know that you're an independent contractor, you're going to make good money, but government's going to want a piece of that too. So make sure you have a good budget and a balanced budget with a good operating fund to maintain your operations and avoid being stressed out. You're always going to be able to earn more money. You're always going to have money flowing in if you're consistent and you show up and you come to work every day. But just be mindful that that stress of needing to sort of earn a commission to get through causes it brings you a lot of stress. So set yourself up so you never have to worry about that stress.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal right now, is build up the emergency contingency fund.
And it takes time.
And
Yeah,
then save for buying real estate.
Yeah, I just got my
Instead of
tax
just
bill
buying cars.
yesterday.
Oh my God.
It's that bad.
Can I share a tip?
Yes.
So
Taxes?
I'm lucky enough that my partner is an accountant, so he's like on me about all this, tax stuff. And pretty much any income I make immediately, I have a separate savings account. I have to put a certain percentage in for taxes. So when tax came around this year, I was like, it was the most stress-free because I had it all ready to go.
I do have all mine ready. I'm fine. It was only 22. Well, how much do you put away? Because I've just got all mine in one big account.
Yeah, so it depends. So I have another company. So I'm doing social media marketing. So for that, I immediately, any invoice, I'd take 20% and put it in that account. And so with real estate, it's a little different. It kind of depends on the commission amount, but maybe talk to your accountant and see what they think, but a good chunk go into that account. And this year I was like, oh my God, I had enough for my GST and I was good. So last year, not so much. It's really stressful if you don't do that. So yeah.
I can imagine I'd be really stressed right now if I couldn't.
Yeah. And I have some other real estate friends that, yeah, exactly. I have other real estate friends that are like, oh, I did not do that, and I don't have that money sitting there, and you're kind of screwed.
And it's not a small amount of money.
No,
$22,000 to
pay interest
it the next day. Because I kind of waited.
When you get a $40,000 bill from Revenue Canada and you've got like $50 in your account, that causes a lot of stress.
I can't imagine.
Terrible.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. So be prepared, because wow.
It's a good time to
Let's
learn.
hope they stay on strike.
Yeah.
No, that
Strike
doesn't-
right now?
I don't think that affects it though, does it? They want their money.
Yeah.
What was Nate's question?
He said, hope they stay on strike.
Oh yeah. Them being on strike does not impact money owing to them.
They still took my money real quick.
And they still want you to file before
It
May, right?
impacts, it
Yeah.
impacts them processing your paperwork, but it does not impact how much or when you need to pay them.
Yeah.
They
For
might
the
be
record.
slower paying people back though.
Yeah, when you get, if you're
Of course.
owed, it might take a little bit.
Yeah,
Don't expect that money anytime soon.
funny how that works, eh?
And you're not gonna get the 2% penalty that they charge you
No.
for
Mm-mm.
not paying on
No.
time. Yeah.
No. Yeah, well, it's exciting.
Okay, anybody have anything they want to follow up, or we're getting 5 to 10? I'm gonna be heading up island here to visit our crew in Chemainus and Lake Cowichan, so we're getting close to 10. Is there anything we want to touch on before we wind up here?
Hmm.
No, everybody's good, everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think you answered a lot of my questions about the subject to sale. That was a little foreign to me. I only did one deal with subject to sale and there was no backup offers and it never ended up working out anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, when I see a subject to sale, I sort of like cringe a little
Yeah.
now because but you answered all the
And-
questions. So
Yeah, and I guess the one other element too is the preparation of the buyer when you're making that offer subject to sale. You know, the first question any seller is gonna have is your house for sale? You know, a buyer may not want their house on the market until they find a place. But you should, it can take easily, a week or 2 weeks to get a house ready to go on the market. You need to get photos, you need floor plans, you need drone footage, you need videos, you need all that stuff. So having that stuff prepared in advance is always, very beneficial, because the seller is going to want to know, one, if it's not for sale, when's it going to be listed, how much is it going to be listed for, and so on and so forth. So the buyer has some preparation work to do. It's not great if the buyer's like, oh, I want to make an offer on that house, but I got to get my house for sale. And then you make an offer, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's going to take me a week or two to get my house up, to get it listed, that kind of stuff. There's a couple different sort of strategies you can do, like having the house listed, great. If they get an offer on their place, you can always have a condition, or you can always insert a condition into the contract whereby, this offer would be subject to the seller entering into an unconditional agreement to purchase, another property. Or, having it listed, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, sort of the pie in the sky type listing where you list it overpriced just to have it on the market. And then, you can negotiate and say, well, we'll drop the price and, we'll actively market it. You run the risk though a little bit, I think, of damaging the listing, creating a certain amount of a stale environment around a particular property. Say it's been on the market for 2 or 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you drop 50 grand. Whenever you see a significant price reduction on a listing on Matrix, if you see a $1 million house and all of a sudden it's 850 or 900, you're like, whoa, what's wrong with that house? Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's a perception that can be caused, that might cause hurdles. So I've always been a proponent of price it right. And just do things, act according to the market. Don't create problems necessarily. I mean, and that may be the client's wish. They may want to just hope for the best. They can do that, and we can do that for them. Let's just make sure that they're aware of the risks involved in doing something like that. So when they come back to you and say, well, how come you haven't sold my house? You can go, do you remember that conversation we had 6 weeks ago when we talked about listing and we talked about pricing? Keep good notes, but make sure that they're well aware of the risks and pitfalls in advance of doing something like that could potentially, risk a sale on their property. I guess that wasn't it, but there's always more, I guess, but any comments on that last little bit?
I'm heading out to hike my parents' place. Somebody should come with me sometime. It's out in
Fabulous.
Prospect Lake. It's really beautiful. It's 2.5 kilometers around a lovely lake.
I'm gonna have to
Join
get
me
my boat out to
anytime.
Prospect. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, you have to come.
This week. I'll have to
Bring
look
your boat,
there.
drop it off.
Yeah.
You've got a large property. So anytime somebody wants to come.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Guys.
I'll,
Bye, guys.
we'll wind this up. Thank you. I'll upload this video to our YouTube channel. Chad, I don't know if you're aware, we have a YouTube channel in the office that all of these training videos get posted to. I'll send a link out. I usually send a link out in our emails. Is your email, has it been given to the girls up at the front? You get all of our regular office emails and stuff? Perfect. Yeah, feel free to reach out if you guys need any help, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon.
Drive safe.
All right, thanks
Bye,
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Let's go, sweetie.